listen, like, you're going to have price increases soon. You're going to have empty shelves in a lot of our stores.
Like in 2 weeks.
That was a direct warning sent to the president from the largest CEOs in the US retail industry, including Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, during a private meeting with President Trump earlier this week. The CEOs are not only the ones who directly see the data, but also witness the sad expressions on consumers' faces every time they step into the supermarket. Some people walk down both aisles, but still can't find the item they need. Some people stand looking at the price list, then quietly put back the item they just picked up.
And when it affects my budget, it affects my family also. I can't afford to buy the food that they need because I got to put it in gas.
How are we doing it? How are you affording groceries? How are we doing this?
If tariffs do not change, prices continue to rise, not only affecting people's wallets, but also putting the social economy of the most vulnerable states at risk of sinking into poverty and instability. In today's video, we will point out the 10 states at the highest risk of collapse if inflation doesn't stop and major retail chains pull out. Not just because of poverty, not because of the large population, but because these states are too dependent on discount retail chains like Walmart and Target to survive. And who knows, in those states, it might just be where you live. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that this video is not meant to scare you, but to help you realize the truth and perhaps find a safer, more comfortable path. Now let's start with the first state. Do you remember when America was a place where, with just $20 in your wallet, you could bring home a bag full of greens, fresh meat, eggs, milk, and even ice cream for the kids? In the small towns of Mississippi, family meals are still often prepared from what is found at Walmart, the largest, closest, and sometimes the only store in the area. But today, in the same place, you will see empty shelves, eggs nearly doubling in price, and many consumers can only stand silently by the refrigerator, looking at the milk prices before turning away quietly.
It's ridiculous. It is. I mean, you know what is that? $10 for a dozen of eggs?
The eggs I usually buy, they used to be around like 7 something, now they're around like 10.
According to the latest statistics from Feeding America, more than 20% of Mississippi residents currently live below the poverty line, and 1 in 5 households here rely on food banks at least once a month. Many communities that were once attached to a small Walmart, a place not only for shopping but also a gas station, pharmacy, and gathering spot after church services, now fall silent after the store's departure. And with the average gas price over $3.80 a gallon, not everyone can afford to drive 30 to 40 miles to the next supermarket. Some people choose to buy less. Some others choose to eat less. A 72-year-old woman in southern Mississippi recounted, "I have never had to skip a meal, but now I usually eat twice a day, saving milk for my grandchild. There's something off with the way this country is functioning." That's not a complaint. It's a gentle whisper from someone who once believed in a full and fair America. Mississippi has never been a wealthy state, but it used to be livable, once kind, once warm. Now, the change does not come from natural disasters, but from decisions made far away, very far away. Yet the consequences fall upon families who cannot escape anywhere else. And if you think that only happens in Mississippi, may I ask you, how many grocery stores are still operating around your home? And if the Walmart near you closes tomorrow, what will change in your family's dinner? For many American workers, West Virginia is known as an ideal state for retirement. Here, there are picturesque mountain ranges, small towns nestled on the hillsides where people live slowly, know each other well, and Walmart is a familiar destination every week. Here, with just a few dozen dollars, you can buy enough vegetables, milk, and supplies for the whole week, and still have enough left to fill up the gas tank. But today, everything is gradually changing, and it directly affects the lives, specifically the daily meals of the local residents. More and more towns no longer have grocery stores within a 20-mile radius. People living in the southern highlands of the state, such as McDowell or Logan County, have to drive nearly an hour just to buy eggs and milk. Feeding America reported that more than 16% of West Virginia residents are living in food insecurity, and many rural communities have no choice but to drive 30 to 40 miles just to buy fresh vegetables. And with the ever-increasing gas prices, not everyone has a car to do that. But even after traveling far, it's not always possible to buy what you want, because many shelves are empty. A 75-year-old man in Boone County shared, "I used to be able to walk to Walmart every week. Now, I have to call my granddaughter to drive me. I don't want to bother anyone, but I have no choice." Many elderly people are considering skipping breakfast or lunch to save for dinner. Some families have to share a 1-liter box of milk over 2 days because the price has become unaffordable. The food banks in the area are nearly depleted each week, and many distribution points only operate once a month. In an internal meeting with the government, CEOs of several retail chains warned that if prices and operating costs are not controlled, rural communities, such as those in West Virginia, will be the first to collapse. Because in those places, just one store closing can disrupt the entire community's way of life. West Virginia used to be a place where simple Americans lived peacefully and could live out their days on a small pension. But now, those who have paid taxes their whole lives and served the community are at risk of having to choose between food and medicine. So who is really being protected? If you or your relatives' friends are living in Louisiana, then perhaps you and they are already too familiar with the challenges. From hurricanes, natural disasters, to economic downturns, this state has experienced them all and continues to strive to endure. But this challenge seems tougher. Rising prices and the disappearance of the last stores that the poor can hardly live without. From rural towns in the Acadiana region to low-income neighborhoods in northern Baton Rouge, discount stores and budget supermarkets are disappearing rapidly. And when Walmart or Dollar General leaves a community, the people there not only lose a place to shop, but also face the risk of losing access to fresh, affordable food. Louisiana used to be a place where everything was simple. You could drive a few minutes to the grocery store, buy vegetables, chat with the familiar salesperson, and then stop by the gas station to fill up the tank with $20. But today, with food prices rising more than 25% in just 2 years, and many areas no longer having supermarkets within a 30-mile radius, the once familiar place has now become an expensive and exhausting journey. In poor communities, people do not have cars, or do not have enough money for gas, so shopping becomes a real challenge. And when the options are limited, they are forced to live on canned goods and processed foods. They seem fine, but in reality, they are all foods high in salt, sugar, and lacking in nutrition. According to various sources, in a recent meeting at the White House, the CEOs of Target and Walmart jointly issued a warning. If prices are not controlled and states do not support retail infrastructure, many areas will fall into a state of food scarcity. And more than anyone else, it is the poor who will be the first to be affected. And more than anyone else, it is the poor people who are the first to be affected. And the first places they are referring to, these are the states like Louisiana, where the fragile supply chains, low incomes, and the people who have almost nothing left after so many upheavals occur. And the first places affected that they are referring to are states like Louisiana, where the supply chain is fragile, incomes are low, and the people have almost nothing left after so many upheavals. And the question arises, if a retiree has to live on canned food and cheap packaged goods because there are no other options, is that still the American dream that many people aspire to? And if even Walmart, Target, and major retail chains are simultaneously warning about the risk of collapse, then it is no longer a prediction. It is a wake-up call. South Carolina, once a paradise of simple yet fulfilling meals, is now facing soaring prices and a supply chain at risk of disappearing entirely. From rural communities like Bamberg and Dillon to working-class areas in Florence and Orangeburg, buying food is no longer as easy as it used to be. A shopping cart that used to be filled with just $40 can now only buy a few basic items: a tray of eggs, a bag of milk, a few loaves of bread, and sometimes just the leftover items on the shelf. According to data from the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, Food prices in the state have increased by more than 23% over the past 2 years. But in the poor regions, where the average income is nearly 30% lower than the national average, the real purchasing power has decreased much more significantly. Even for essential items like milk, eggs, and vegetables, retail prices in non-competitive areas are 15 to 25% higher compared to urban areas. Why? Because small stores are forced to raise prices to survive. And giants like Walmart, Dollar Tree, or Family Dollar, names that were once a lifeline for the poor, are quietly withdrawing from many towns in South Carolina just when they need them the most. A mother in rural Chesterfield recounted, "I used to go to Walmart every week. Now the store near my house has closed. We only have one small store left. They sell vegetables at double the price. A bunch of vegetables costs over $3. Eggs are nearly $6. How can I raise 3 kids?" South Carolina, with its sparsely distributed population, lack of public transportation in most rural counties, and high dependence on discount chains, is the most glaring weakness. People without cars cannot travel far to shop. The elderly do not have the strength to carry food back from the neighboring town. Workers, even with jobs, still have to choose to eat less to save for their children. South Carolina used to be a place where a simple meal, with stir-fried cabbage, green beans, and a small piece of meat, symbolized simple abundance. But as food prices soar, supply chains break down, and stores withdraw day by day, even that simplicity becomes distant. This state may not be the first place to collapse, but if the situation continues like this, it will be one of the first places to clearly feel each meal gradually shrinking. Kentucky used to be a place where you could live simply without feeling deprived. A central southern land, where people live close to nature, cling to farming, factories, and towns bonded over many generations. Here, Walmart is an indispensable part of daily life, from buying dinner, medicine, to finding a job. But today, Kentucky is facing 2 waves at once: food inflation and a quietly rising unemployment rate. According to the latest data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, food prices in Kentucky have increased by more than 21% in just the past 24 months. In some rural areas like Bell County or Martin County, where the average household income is 35% lower than the state average, residents are having to spend up to 1/3 of their income just to buy basic food. At the same time, the unemployment rate has risen back to over 5.2%, especially in areas that once depended on the coal industry, manufacturing plants, or logistics, sectors that are shrinking after the pandemic and trade crisis. And in that context, retail chains like Walmart, Target, or Kroger, instead of opening more stores, are scaling back operations in areas that are no longer profitable. But ironically, it is the place where people need them the most. The volunteer food centers in Lexington and Pikeville both reported a more than 40% increase in demand over the past year, but their budgets and supplies have not kept pace. The elderly share a single bottle of milk. Children bring canned cookies to school instead of fruit or sandwiches like before. Kentucky used to be a place of kindness, where you knew the names of the shopkeepers and were sure you would find eggs, bread, and vegetables whenever you needed them. But today, people are starting to get used to the sight: empty shelves, doubled egg prices, and the repeated question, will we have enough money to go to the market this week? Do you think this is just temporary? Think about the scenario. If you lose your job, how will you afford to buy food? If the nearest supermarket leaves, where will you go to find what once seemed normal? And if Walmart, once the last bastion of low prices, can no longer hold on in Kentucky, what do you think will keep these communities standing? New Mexico has always been known as a state rich in culture, picturesque, but also one of the states with the lowest average income in the United States. And during this period of soaring food inflation, New Mexico is being pushed into a spiral from which many residents here see no escape. According to the latest statistics, nearly 18% of New Mexico residents live below the poverty line, and in many rural communities, especially in the western and southern regions, this rate exceeds 25%. At the same time, food assistance programs, from SNAP to food banks, have not been expanded in proportion to the demand. And so, people are not just eating less. They eat less nutritious food, eat at the wrong times, and eat whatever is left on the shelves. But unfortunately, there aren't many options left for them on the shelf either. In many towns, Walmart or discount chains are the only stores within a 30-50 mile radius. When these stores pull out, due to financial inefficiency, people lose their last option for decent meals at reasonable prices. A mother of two in Gallup recounted, "The store near my house has closed. I don't have a car, so I go to the gas station to buy cookies, instant noodles and sausages. Every day. I know it's not good, but it's cheap and I have no choice." That's not a self-pitying complaint. That is the very real sound of acceptance. According to a survey from the University of New Mexico, more than 32% of children in this state do not have a nutritious meal every day. That number is not just a statistic. It is a warning about the future of a generation. And if the retail giants have all warned that states like New Mexico could feel the strong impact if prices are not controlled, then you, living in another state, can you be sure that where you live won't soon fall into a similar situation? If you have never been here, you might think that the people of Alaska live among fresh salmon, venison, wild vegetables, and clean food. But the reality is quite different. In many remote communities of Alaska, where there are no year-round roads, food is not transported by truck, but by airplane. And when fuel prices, labor wages, and operating costs soar, food prices in Alaska also escalate in a way that no other state in the US can imagine. According to the US Department of Agriculture, Alaskans are paying 50 to 100% more than the national average for the same item. A gallon of milk in Bethel, a small town in the western part of the state, can cost up to $11. A bag of frozen broccoli costs nearly $8. Eggs, if available, can cost up to $6 to $9 per tray. And that's when they are still in stock. When Walmart and Target warned the federal government that rising prices would cause many states to face food shortages, they were not just talking about poor states. They were talking about places where the distribution system was already fragile. And Alaska is one of them. Walmart currently only maintains a few stores in major cities like Anchorage or Fairbanks. In more remote areas, where people live by fishing, hunting, or relying on subsidies, residents have no choice but to live slowly, eat slowly, and hope that the small nearby store doesn't go bankrupt. According to a report from the Alaska Food Coalition, nearly 1/3 of independent low-cost food centers in the state have reduced their operating hours or closed down in the past 18 months. This means that fewer and fewer poor people are receiving assistance. Alaska may be the most beautiful place in America, but that beauty is not enough to fill a hungry stomach. And as prices continue to rise, as the retail giants gradually pull out, even the most basic necessities for survival become a luxury. Arkansas is the home of Walmart. From its headquarters in Bentonville, the largest retail empire in the United States has expanded across the states, bringing with it the promise of low prices, convenience, and a presence right in the heart of local communities. For the people of Arkansas, Walmart is not just a symbol of pride, it is also a part of their daily rhythm. But the irony is, right in its own hometown, Walmart is pulling back. In the rural areas of southern and eastern Arkansas, more and more neighborhood market stores, the smaller, community-oriented versions of Walmart, have been closing over the past 2 years. The reason is not too hard to understand. When revenue is insufficient, operating costs increase, and people no longer shop as much as before, because they no longer have money. According to the US Department of Agriculture, nearly 14% of Arkansans live in conditions of food insecurity, and in poor counties like Phillips or Lee, this rate is more than double. The reality is that in many places, when Walmart closes, people have to drive more than 30 miles just to buy fresh vegetables or clean meat. And if they choose to buy from the remaining grocery stores in the area, oh dear, the prices they really can't bear to look at. You see, this is Arkansas, where people used to proudly say that Walmart was ours. But when costs rise, when revenues slow, The first places to be cut are the poorest, most remote, and quietest. No complaints, no protests, just a notice. This store will be closing. Arkansas used to be a place where you could live simply without feeling deprived. Now, even simplicity has become a luxury. Buying eggs or going to the market has turned into a journey. And if that can happen in Walmart's very own hometown, can you be sure that your city will be the exception? Alabama is not the poorest state in the United States. But with the current uncontrollable rise in prices, it could be one of the first states to face the risk of instability. From the southern plains to the small towns deep inland, more and more people in Alabama are struggling just to go to the market. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't. In areas like Choctaw, Wilcox, or Lowndes, where the average household income is 40% lower than the national average, the closure of a supermarket is not merely a change in convenience, but a direct impact on survival. According to a recent survey, more than 1.5 million people in the state are living in food insecurity. And what makes the situation worse is that Alabama has almost no public transportation system in rural areas. When the CEOs of Walmart and Target warned the federal government that soaring prices could leave many shelves empty in vulnerable states at risk of being affected, they were not talking about Manhattan or San Francisco. They are talking about places like Alabama. Places where Walmart is not just a supermarket, but also a bank, a pharmacy, a convenience store, and a community center. Alabama used to be a place of close-knit small communities, where going to the supermarket was also an opportunity to chat, where elderly people were called by name by Walmart employees. But skyrocketing prices are taking that away. And if we don't pay attention, then the places that were once the most peaceful will be the first to fall into the silence of locked doors. Try looking around and see how many grocery stores are left near where you live. And if they disappear, do you have the means to travel 30 to 40 miles to buy milk, eggs, and medicine? Nevada used to be a place where people dreamed of finding opportunities. From the lights of Las Vegas to the developing suburbs like Henderson and North Las Vegas. This state once represented speed, jobs, and a more relaxed life than California. But that is a story of the past. Today, the people of Nevada are facing food inflation, silent unemployment, and the retreat of retail chains from once bustling neighborhoods. According to a report from the Nevada Department of Labor, the state's unemployment rate remains among the highest in the country at 5.4% in early 2025. Post-pandemic period, the service industry. In many suburban neighborhoods like Sunrise Manor or Elko, Walmart neighborhood market stores have been closing one after another since 2023. The backbone of Nevada has not fully recovered, and that forces many young workers and low-income individuals to work two jobs just to make ends meet. At the same time, food prices have surged nearly 25% over the past 2 years, according to statistics from the Nevada Food Security Council. And the irony is, this state does not produce most of the food it consumes. Almost all food, vegetables, meat, and dairy products have to be imported from California or neighboring states. When transportation costs rise, Nevada is one of the first places to be affected. In many suburban neighborhoods like Sunrise Manor or Elko, Walmart neighborhood market stores have been closing one after another since 2023. The main reasons are low revenue, high operating costs, and purchasing power not recovering after the pandemic. Las Vegas used to be a place where you could buy a meal for 4 people for $30. But today, just the meat and eggs cost that much. And the frightening thing is, many people have gotten used to skipping lunch to save money as part of their normal routine. Food banks in Las Vegas and Reno report a 60% increase in demand just in 2024, but supply is becoming increasingly unstable, as distribution chains are also cutting back. If Las Vegas, a symbol of light and opportunity, is also struggling to keep its residents well fed, is there any state truly immune to inflation and supply chain shortages? We just passed through 10 states at risk of facing a recession. Not because of a lack of money, but because of rising prices, supermarket closures, and ordinary people being left behind. And if you think this is happening only in some distant place, try looking back at the neighborhood around you. How many stores are still open? How long has it been since you could buy a full meal for under $20? Leave a comment below, because your story could be the voice of thousands of others who feel alone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and join us in looking directly at what is really happening in the heart of America. This video is created for the purpose of analysis and reflection from public sources, combined with a social perspective. We do not represent any business, political organization, or individual. All information in the video is compiled from public reports, government data, and the press. Encourage the audience to verify independently and make assessments appropriate to their own context. Thank you for watching. We will return with the next truths, sooner than you think. See you in the next video.